Hi guys, I'm glad you're all here. Thank you for joining me. Yesterday I did 7 quarts of meatloaf and here it is. All done. Jars washed and labeled and ready to be put away. I'll show you how I did this. It's easy. This is not USDA approved. But it will probably keep a year to maybe 2 years or longer in a cool, dark, clean place. Good. I had made it before, but I filled the jars to what they say, about 1 inch below the rim, and I had multiple ones blow up. So this time I didn't fill them quite as high. And you basically can put in anything you normally put in for a meatloaf. But mine, I put in bacon, oatmeal, let's see, Worcestershire sauce, onions, and sweet bell peppers. So I'm going to show you how I did this. Yeah, and they all came out good. I didn't have any problem with, the lids blowing off like I did the first time when I evidently filled them too far. To get them out, when you want to eat your meatloaf, and my grandson just loved this. We had some the other day when I did make it before. You just take the jar, run it under hot water, and for the wide mouth jars, it would just slide out. Alright, so I'll be back in a minute. The bacon I just put on a pan, set the oven on low, and let it cook in there. Let me stick this in the oven. And I've been saving my bacon grease. I bought the bacon before prices went sky high. So I have plenty of bacon, I think. I have to do an inventory. See how much bacon I might have left. But anyways, I'll just let that cook on low. I got it set at 280 right now. Now the bell peppers I found at a yard sale last year. And they were selling them for just 25 cents each. And I canned them, and that's what I'm going to use. And then I'm also going to put ketchup in there. Now the hamburger is going to be raw when I put it in the jars. So the water in my pressure canner is going to be cold, because we want the water to heat up at the same time as the jars of the meatloaf. No, you don't have heated water when you're canning meatloaf because the hamburger will be raw. Alright, the onions are cut up in small pieces. I got olive oil in here. I suppose you could use butter, but the price of butter lately, that's another thing I stocked up on last year, was butter before the prices went sky high. So, yeah, I was lucky to find a small jar of olive oil at what they call the bin. And it was, I believe, $1. I don't know, maybe it was $1 a day or $3 a day. So for the price of olive oil, yeah, I was real happy to find that at the bin. I don't get out there very often. When I do, it's usually with my daughter on her days off. And usually it's been picked over pretty good by the time you get over there. I don't know how familiar many of you are with the store, the bin, where you can get a whole bag for a certain price, or individual item for a price. But anyways, we're going to fry up the onions until they go clear and maybe a little brown. And that will go into my meatloaf also. I'm also going to add 2 or 3 eggs. Some people use breadcrumbs, some people use crackers. Myself, I use oatmeal. I noticed the eggs that are supposed to be large, they're not really that large. When I bought this case, of eggs, it was $22. Back in April, when I bought the same case of eggs, it was only about $14. I'll show you an image of that. And then also what I'm doing, let me show you. Let me close this up. I thought this was really a good idea for eggs. I've been putting eggs in individual muffin tins and freezing them. And then I'll take them out and I'll stick them in the freezer for use later. Yeah. So I thought that was another good idea for long-term storing of eggs. But they'll go into a Ziploc bagging, and I'll put them in my other freezer. I got 2 pans in here of eggs that I got to get out. So, yep, 2 to 3 eggs I'll also add. Now the green peppers, I got 2 pints here. They're already cooked and they were canned, so they're pretty soft. If you don't have pre-cooked, yeah, so your green peppers you'll have to cook before you put into the meatloaf, and you could probably do that, putting them in with the onions. Alright, there's my bacon. I got it tipped up on the counter so that the bacon grease drains. And I'm going to stack this over here, and I'm going to let it cool off, hopefully without sliding the pan too much. And then we'll let it cool off. You can see it's probably pretty crispy. And then I'll break it up into little pieces and put it in a bowl. What I'm going to have to do is, the bowl that I have is small. So I'm going to have to do 2 batches to fill up 7 quarts to make my meatloaf. So I'm going to do half and half batches. So I'm going to add half the bacon, half the onions, and half the green peppers to each batch. Alright, there's no set recipe, at least for me, for making meatloaf. I added garlic powder. I added some Himalayan pink salt. Do not use iodine when you're pressure canning. And like I said, I got the bacon, Worcestershire sauce, ketchup instead of tomatoes, my green peppers and bacon. And then I also added a little bit of my bacon grease. Some people like to put bacon on top of their meatloaf when they're baking in the oven. But because I baked it and cut it up into small pieces, you know, the bacon grease drained off. Normally, if you bake it in the oven in a pan, that bacon grease would go through the meatloaf. So I just added a little bit of bacon grease to it. And now I'll put it in the jar, and I'll show you how full I make the jar. What I like about the wide mouth canning jars is I can get my hands in there as I fill it up and push the air bubbles out. Alright, so that's as far as I'm going to fill it. Maybe, an inch below the rim, maybe an inch and a half. And you can see all the spices. I try to get as many air pockets out of there as I could. But I have found from past experience, if I put more than this amount of the raw meatloaf into the jar, yeah, I've had the lids blow off on me. Alright, so I'm making a second batch. I got 4 jars out of 1 bowl, and I want to do 7 jars. That way the pressure cooker is filled up. And I had a little bit extra. So I added all the liquids first. The bacon, the egg, 2 eggs in each batch. The green pepper, onion, and bacon. And then I added some extra bacon grease. So we're going to keep working and adding more hamburger. And then I'll add, I think that will fill up another 3 quarts. Like I said, there's no set recipe. I cleaned the lids with vinegar and a cloth and put the lids on. You see it's not completely full. It's just like raw chicken. When you can raw chicken, it'll cook with its own juices in the jar. So I do not have to add any liquid to the jars. Alright, 7 jars. You can see they're not completely full. No liquid added. I have a little bit left over. Either I'll stick it in the fridge and maybe make some more later, or I can just put that into a hamburger patty. Maybe 7 pounds of hamburger. I bought the 10-pound tube, and when I made it yesterday, I had about a third of it left over. And now, with my other tube, I probably got about half of it left over. So enough to probably make another 7 quarts. We'll see. Alright, so we'll put it in the canner now. Alright, there they are in the canner. The water is not hot. The water is room temperature. It's been sitting there a little bit. I added, maybe 2 tablespoons of vinegar to the water. That way the lids and the jars do not discolor during the processing. Alright, got the lid on. I turned it on high. Once the 2 safety valves come up, I'll let it vent for 10 minutes. After 10 minutes, I'll put the weight on, let it come up to 11 pounds, because that is what is required for my elevation. I am under 2,000 feet, and it will cook for 90 minutes under pressure at 11 pounds. You can go over 11 pounds a little bit, but not under. If you go under 11 pounds, you have to start the time all over. So, as you guys know, I keep a constant eye on my pressure cooker. So we'll be back when the 2 safety valves, this one here and that one, pop up. And we'll start the time for 10 minutes. Alright, both safety locks have now come up. You can see that one there and that one there. And we're going to let it vent for 10 minutes now. Can you see the steam? Alright, 10 minutes is up. We'll put the weight on top. And then wait for the pressure to reach 11 pounds. And then start the timer for 90 minutes of cooking. Once it reaches 11 pounds, I will then adjust my heat, turning it down slowly to make sure it does not drop below 11 pounds and doesn't get too high. Alright, pressure down to 0. Both valves have dropped, and I'll wait about 10 minutes, maybe 5-10 minutes before I remove the lid. Alright, there they all are. They look good. Sounds like one of them's bubbling. You see the steam. And I'll take one out and we'll show you. Yeah, it's bubbling. Oops. It's bubbling. There you go. There's one. And we'll take out another one. Hot and steamy. There's the other one. It's bubbling. Alright, so we're going to let them set overnight. You can see they made their own juices. And then tomorrow, after they've cooled off, I'll remove the rings, wash them, and label them and put them away. But that's how easy it is. Looks like they came out okay. We'll probably start hearing them pinging here in a few minutes as the lids seal. as they cool off. So thank you very much for watching. Yeah, this is not USDA approved. I was watching Alaskan Prepper. Yeah, he had some meatloaf that he opened and ate that was 10 years old. I wouldn't recommend that, but this should be good for a year, 2 years, maybe longer. What are your thoughts? What are your tips? Please put them down below. And I'll talk to you later. God bless you. Bye.